Migrants at a Miami immigration jail were shackled with their hands tied behind their backs and made to kneel to eat food from styrofoam plates like dogs, according to a report published on Monday into conditions at 3 overcrowded South Florida facilities. The incident at the downtown Federal Detention Center is one of a succession of alleged abuses at Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE, operated jails in the state since January, chronicled by advocacy groups Human Rights Watch, Americans for Immigrant Justice, and Sanctuary of the South from interviews with detainees. Dozens of men had been packed into a holding cell for hours, the report said, and denied lunch until about 7 p.m. They remained shackled with the food on chairs in front of them. "We had to eat like animals," one detainee named Pedro said. Degrading treatment by guards is commonplace in all 3 jails, the groups say. At the Chrome North Service Processing Center in West Miami, female detainees were made to use toilets in full view of men being held there, and were denied access to gender-appropriate care, showers, or adequate food. The jail was so far beyond capacity, some transferring detainees reported that they were held for more than 24 hours in a bus in the parking lot. Men and women were confined together and unshackled only when they needed to use the single toilet, which quickly became clogged. The bus became disgusting. It was the type of toilet in which normally people only urinate, but because we were on the bus for so long and we were not permitted to leave it, others defecated in the toilet, one man said. Because of this, the whole bus smelled strongly of feces. When the group was finally admitted into the facility, they said, many spent up to 12 days crammed into a frigid intake room they christened La Hielera, the icebox, with no bedding or warm clothing, sleeping instead on the cold concrete floor. There was so little space at Chrome and so many detainees, the report says, that every available room was used to hold new arrivals. By the time I left, almost all the visitation rooms were full. A few were so full, men couldn't even sit. All had to stand. Andrea, a female detainee, said, at the 3rd facility, the Broward Transitional Center in Pompano Beach, where a 44-year-old Haitian woman, Marie-Ange Blaise, died in April, detainees said they were routinely denied adequate medical or psychological care. Some suffered delayed treatment for injuries and chronic conditions and dismissive or hostile responses from staff, the report said. In one alleged incident in April at the downtown Miami jail, staff turned off a surveillance camera and a disturbance control team brutalized detainees who were protesting a lack of medical attention to one of their number who was coughing up blood. One detainee suffered a broken finger. All 3 facilities were severely overcrowded, the former detainees said. A contributory factor in Florida's decision to quickly build the controversial Alligator Alcatraz jail in the Everglades, intended to eventually hold up to 5,000 undocumented migrants awaiting deportation. Immigration detention numbers nationally were at an average of 56,400 per day in mid-June, with almost 72% having no criminal history, according to the report. The daily average during the whole of 2024 was 37,500, HRW said. The groups say that the documented abuses reflect inhumane conditions inside federal immigration facilities that have worsened significantly since Trump's January inauguration and subsequent push to ramp up detentions and deportations. The anti-immigrant escalation and enforcement tactics under the Trump administration are terrorizing communities and ripping families apart, which is especially cruel in the state of Florida, which thrives because of its immigrant communities, said Katie Blankenship, immigration attorney and co-founder of Sanctuary of the South. The rapid, chaotic, and cruel approach to arresting and locking people up is literally deadly and causing a human rights crisis that will plague this state and the entire country for years to come. Analyzes what's happening inside Miami's ICE detention facility. Introduction. A chilling new report by Human Rights Watch Americans for Immigrant Justice, and Sanctuary of the South has brought to light deeply disturbing abuses at immigration detention facilities in Florida, particularly at the Chrome North Service Processing Center and the ICE jail in downtown Miami. The most shocking claim: migrants were shackled and made to kneel to eat, treated like dogs. Conditions described as inhumane: forced to kneel and eat without hands. Detainees, according to multiple eyewitness reports, were forced to eat while their hands were shackled behind their backs. Food trays were placed on chairs, and migrants were ordered to kneel and lower their heads to eat. This method of feeding was described by witnesses as humiliating, dehumanizing, and resembling animal behavior. We were handcuffed behind our backs and had to kneel in front of the plate. It felt like being fed like a dog, one migrant stated. Overcrowding and long hours in buses. Before even reaching detention centers, detainees were held in unsanitary buses for hours or days without bathroom access. One bathroom on board was so overused it became unusable. Some migrants defecated on themselves due to lack of options. Abuses against women and LGBTQ+ migrants. No access to showers. Transgender women housed with men. No feminine hygiene products. Women forced to urinate in full view of men. These abuses point to a systemic failure to respect the dignity and privacy of female and LGBTQ+ migrants. Physical abuse and cover-ups. At the Miami ICE jail, a protest over medical neglect turned violent. A disturbance control team was deployed to punish detainees. ICE agents allegedly turned off surveillance cameras before attacking migrants. One man's finger was broken. Others were thrown against walls or kicked. Officers later fabricated reports denying any abuse. This raises serious concerns about institutional cover-ups and impunity. Death in custody. A Haitian woman, Marie-Ange Blaise, died at the Broward Transitional Center in April 2025. Her death, according to the report, was linked to medical neglect and poor facility conditions. Scale of the problem. ICE detention population soars. Over 56,000 migrants were detained as of mid-2025. Most had no criminal record. 72% had committed no crimes. The rise in detainees has led to dangerous overcrowding and diminished oversight. This aligns with broader trends under escalating Trump-era immigration enforcement policies, including massive funding boosts and plans to build new mega facilities such as the Everglades Detention Complex, nicknamed Alligator Alcatraz. Legal and human rights implications. Violations include the UN Convention Against Torture, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, U.S. constitutional protections against cruel and unusual punishment. Human rights groups are calling for immediate federal investigation, accountability for abusive guards, closure of the Miami ICE facility, protection for whistleblowers and victims, analysis, systemic abuse, or isolated case. The patterns described in the report match long-standing complaints across the ICE detention system, from Hillaraz, iceboxes in Border Patrol stations to deaths in custody. This isn't an isolated case. It reflects militarized immigration enforcement, privatization and profit-driven detention centers, lack of transparency or independent oversight. This makes it systemic abuse, not a one-off failure. Political repercussions. This scandal comes at a sensitive time as immigration dominates the U.S. political debate. The Trump administration has intensified immigration raids, expanded detention funding to $45 billion, and reduced options for asylum. Critics argue these policies criminalize migration, encourage xenophobia, undermine America's role as a refuge for the persecuted. Conclusion. The report that migrants were made to kneel and eat like dogs is not just about one instance of abuse. It's a symbol of a deeper, systemic cruelty embedded in U.S. immigration enforcement. This moment demands accountability, transparency, justice, and, most of all, a restoration of human dignity for every person inside ICE detention.